Hey everyone, I'm Keegs, and today we are going to be starting my three-part series talking about my three favorite anime. Now, these have taken a spot on my top list ever since I first saw them, and they haven't been dethroned, nor do I expect them to. Now, they're in no particular order, so please don't make me choose between them because that's like choosing children. But first up, you already know it, let's talk Dragon Ball Z. Now, don't get me wrong, I love some Dragon Ball, but Dragon Ball Z will forever be my favorite. And this was the most epic TV show ever when I was a kid. I remember I would come home from school, and it was like every Tuesday or Thursday, and I would come home and put on Toonami. There was always an episode of Dragon Ball, followed by an episode of Dragon Ball Z. And this is actually probably the first show that I regularly watched weekly. I was like 8. Now, I'm not going to worry about spoilers here because this show is as old as I am. Actually, it's a little bit older. And I think everybody that's watching this YouTube series has almost certainly already seen it. So let's just hop in with my very favorite scene in the entire series, starting off big. Goku going Super Saiyan 1 for the first time. Now, it was generally a happy moment, and then Krillin dies. All of a sudden, the music gets real serious. Lightning starts going off around Namek, things are blowing up, and Goku, he can't barely get a word out of his mouth when he tells everybody else to get to the ship. There's no play in his voice at this time. And this might be my favorite scene in a show ever. It was entirely cinematic, and people don't often think about the directing style in animation, but you knew when you saw this that this was perfectly executed. From the music to the camera angles to the dialogue. Even as a kid, you could recognize how well done this scene was. And later in that same fight, Goku tells Frieza that he is not even worth fighting because he's too weak at that point. And that is the ultimate disrespect for Frieza, and it was amazing. I know a lot of people would argue that Gohan going Super Saiyan 2 was even better, and I can't fault them for that because it was a great scene, but seeing Goku go Super Saiyan 1 for the first time, this is the first time you've ever seen a Super Saiyan on screen, that can't be beat for me. Also, a little bit of the fact is that I was still sad in the Cell arc that Goku didn't really all-out fight Cell ever. He did, he tested him and he was like, yep, okay, Cell's too strong for me, but he didn't go off and die or anything, he just said, you can go get it. So I think I was a little sad that I never got to see Goku go all out in that fight, and then he just died because he got blew up, but it was still a great scene, and I think overall the Cell arc is my favorite arc. I love seeing future Trunks in that. One of my favorite parts, he had a sword. It didn't even make sense in the context of the series because they don't even use weapons really in this universe. Even I think his sword breaks at one point. This was also about the time that Vegeta became tied as my second favorite character in this series. Watching a villain change and become a good guy and change around Bulma and constantly act annoyed and like he was still a big bad guy, but secretly I think he really loved that there were people around him that cared about him. And it's pretty good of him to find some people that cared about him after committing multiple genocides in his youth. The silly things you do when you're young. The Buu arc was actually my least favorite for a couple reasons. One, Goku was still dead, which I thought was sad. And two, look what they did to my boy. I also thought Buu himself was a crappy villain. I mean, he had no motivations and he was pure evil, which wasn't very interesting to watch, to be honest. And I thought Babidi and his little sidekick were more interesting. They were probably the most interesting villains in that arc, and they died, at the beginning of it. The arc did bring Trunks and Goten, which were great to see, because they brought a humor back to this series that had kind of been lost since the original Dragon Ball. So they brought that back, and they were always fun and interesting to watch, and they were just people having fun, little kids running around. And I love the Supreme Kais that they brought in because they thought they knew everything, but they were actually pretty naive and really just in awe of everything happening around them. They were always surprised whenever a character did pretty much anything in this show. There was a lot of filler in this series, but I'd argue that that actually made me enjoy the show more as a kid, and you felt like you were really growing with the characters, going through their lives, when you didn't just see the action stuff, but you saw some of the more mundane stuff and a little bit of the tasks that they would do around the village and things like that. It really gave you a good sense of their character. The kind of filler I didn't like was the filler that just recapped what happened in other episodes. Memories of Gohan. But that's kind of stuff really annoyed me. And like things like Snake Road, I thought were actually really great, and they were meaningful to the story, and they added more to Goku's development as a person, and you get to see more of his journey rather than, you know, he shows up at Snake Road and then the next episode he's at the end of it. You don't get a good sense for how long and hard and treacherous that path actually was. When I was a kid, I was also really bothered when Goku at the very end of the series just left with Oob to go off training in some really remote village or something. And I don't know why that bothered me so much. I guess that felt like he was leaving his family, but he's got instant transmission, so does he ever actually really leave anywhere? And I did briefly want to say that I did watch Dragon Ball Super, and I thought it was actually pretty good. I think we can all agree that the Future Trunks saga with Goku Black was the best saga by far. I thought Goku was a little too goofy sometimes throughout Super, though, and not quite serious enough when he needed to be. But overall, it wasn't a big issue, and I would love to see Goku and Vegeta come back with the Ultra Instinct technique mastered, or at least be able to pull it out in some more dire situations. He wasn't really able to get it out for super long in the, last few episodes of Super. And I would like to see him do a little better with that. I could go on forever about this show, and it will be the show that I probably remember the most because I've seen it like a million times. But I would love to know what you guys think about the show, so please tell me down in the comments, what was your favorite part? What was your least favorite part of this series? For now, this is Keegs signing off. For the next anime that we are going to be talking about, find out next week on Dragon Ball Z. It's Code Geass.